Welcome to the Explainer. Okay, let's dive right into this comprehensive new study exploring the global digital education divide. We're looking at a pretty fascinating paper titled The Impact of Digital Resource Utilization on Student Learning Outcomes and Self-Efficacy Across Different Economic Contexts, a comparative analysis of PISA 2022. It's by Jurgaraj Joshi, Jivan Khanal, Krishna Prasad Sharma Chapai, and Krishna Prasad Adhikari. It's a brilliant piece of work that literally challenges some of our most basic assumptions about technology in the classroom.
We've got a lot of fascinating data to unpack today, so we're going to follow a clear academic journey through the study. We'll hit the abstract and research questions, the methodology, findings on access, some really surprising trends, and finally, the conclusions and implications.
All right, Section 1, the abstract and RQs, framing the digital divide. Let's get a high-level view of what the authors set out to achieve.
So the abstract really sets the stage for us. It tells us this is an investigation into how students from vastly different economic backgrounds actually use digital tools and how it impacts their self-efficacy and learning outcomes. You know, we hear about the digital divide all the time, right? Usually it's framed just about who has a laptop and who doesn't. But these researchers wanted to look deeper. They wanted to know what happens after the devices are handed out. Are they being used effectively? Are they actually helping students learn? Or, let's be honest, are they just expensive distractions?
To figure this out, the authors posed some specific research questions. These kind of act as our quest to separate what we expect about the digital divide from what the data actually proves. They asked, how do patterns of school resource usage differ by economic context? How does outside classroom usage vary? What drives the variations in digital self-efficacy? And absolutely crucial here, how do these tools affect overall learning outcomes? These are the exact questions policymakers desperately need answered right now.
Moving on to Section 2, the methodology, or as I like to call it, the tools of discovery.
Let me just say, the scale of the study is absolutely massive. The researchers didn't just survey a few local schools. No way. They analyzed responses from over 237,000 students globally. To put that into perspective, that's like surveying the entire population of a medium-sized city. They used the Program for International Student Assessment, or PISA, 2022 database. And to make sense of this mountain of data, they used robust statistical techniques like analysis of variance and structural equation modeling, just to ensure the trends they found were rock solid.
And this brilliantly illustrates how they organized all that info. They use IMF data on GDP per capita to categorize the 50 participating countries into 3 distinct groups: high income, upper middle income, and lower middle income countries. So for example, places like the US, UK, and Japan fall into the high income bracket. Then you have places like Brazil and Turkey in the upper middle, and countries like Morocco and Ukraine as lower middle. This stratification, it's the entire backbone of their comparative analysis. It lets us see exactly how national wealth shapes a student's digital reality.
Okay, Section 3, findings on access, establishing the baseline. Let's look at the initial numbers.
Confirming pretty much exactly what you'd expect, the data shows that students in high-income countries have far greater access to digital infrastructure. They're significantly more likely to use computers, laptops, and the internet daily. And because of that, these students report much higher overall digital self-efficacy. Basically, they have high confidence in their ability to search for info, communicate digitally, and solve problems online. They're digitally fluent because, well, they're completely immersed in it. But, and this is a big but, as we're about to see, access and confidence absolutely do not automatically equal educational success. Which brings us to Section 4, surprising trends. This is where the data completely subverts our expectations. The researchers found a massive universal gap. Regardless of whether a country is rich or poor, specialized educational software and digital feedback tools are just severely underutilized. A huge proportion of students rarely use these resources for academic stuff. Get this. Over 64% of students almost never read or listen to digital feedback sent by teachers, and over 75% never use automated feedback from educational apps. Think about that for a second. We're giving students the most advanced communication tools in human history, but we aren't actually using them to tell students how to improve their math or science skills.
Now, looking at this breakdown, you'd probably assume high-income students are using tech the best, right? Well, wrong. The data shows upper middle income students actually engage the most outside the classroom for school activities. But here's the real shocker. Lower middle income students actually use digital resources more for dedicated subject learning, like math and science, and for receiving teacher feedback than students in high-income countries do. Let that sink in. The wealthier countries have all the hardware, but a really concerning proportion of it seems to be going toward digital distraction rather than deep, structured learning.
Looking at the study's conceptual framework here, we see this intricate web of how all these factors interact. Their structural equation modeling proved that simply handing out laptops at school, which is represented by that use of digital resources at school node, isn't the primary driver of learning. Actually, scratch that. In some contexts, school usage even had a negative effect on digital self-efficacy. Instead, it's the targeted use of resources outside of school that heavily predicts a student's digital self-efficacy. Mastery experiences facilitated by digital tools at home are what indirectly shape academic success. It's about how the tool is integrated into the student's entire life, not just the time they spend sitting at a desk.
Finally, Section 5, Conclusions and Implications, Bridging the Divide. So, what does this all mean for us?
The authors conclude that policymakers and educators really need to shift their focus. Step 1, we have to move beyond merely closing the hardware gap. Providing equitable usage is the new frontier. Step 2, schools worldwide absolutely must address the universal underutilization of digital feedback tools. We need to train teachers to actually use these platforms to guide student behavior and correct misunderstandings. And step 3, we have to leverage out-of-school digital engagement to build student self-efficacy. We need to recognize that learning definitely doesn't stop the second the school bell rings. I'll leave you with this final provocative thought to ponder from the explainer today. If lower-income contexts are already managing to utilize digital tools more effectively for direct teacher feedback and targeted subject learning, how can high-income schools refocus their abundant, ubiquitous technology toward actual learning rather than just digital distraction? It seems the future of education isn't just about who has the most screens, but who has the discipline and the pedagogy to actually use them right. Thanks for joining me for this explainer, and keep questioning the data.